Hey everybody, welcome along to episode 130 of Percussion Discussion. As usual, I'm going to ask you to please check out all of our social media. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and of course our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all of our conversations with the video to accompany. There's no adverts on there, so you don't have to worry about that, but please subscribe anyway. It helps spread the good word. If you'd rather listen on the go, then of course all of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free to download from your favorite podcast provider. All the usual suspects are there, so don't worry about that. So you're free to listen on the go. Please rate and review if you can find the way to do it. It doesn't take long, and again, it spreads the good word and helps other like-minded drummers find us and hopefully enjoy us. On to today's guest, a gentleman that we've been trying to set this up between us for quite a few months. We're both fairly busy. He's busier than me, and you'll understand why in a minute. But we finally got round to doing it. A gentleman who plays for one of the biggest bands, definitely in the UK, in Europe, and such far-flung places as Australia and who knows where else. He's the drummer for Status Quo, and he's I think the fifth drummer for Status Quo. We've already had John Coughlin, obviously the original Quo drummer, then Jeff Rich. So I'm absolutely delighted to have with us today the fantastic Mr. Leon Cave. Leon, thanks so much for doing this, mate.
No problem at all. Great to see you. It's been a while since we tried to organise it, but we finally got here, which is the main thing. So happy days.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. So first of all, we have to talk about the amazing backdrop of your studio. Now, this is in your house in Cheshire, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is in my garage, which we converted about a year ago. So I moved to Nantwich in 2021, and with the goal of having my own studio at some point. And this is what was created. So it's like a 5 by 5 meter room. I had a mate of mine, Andy Brook, who designed the whole thing. We had to raise the roof, all kinds of wild things. And so there's a room within a room at funny angles. And this is where I do all my recording and my practice. And it's kind of a bit of a storage unit as well for all my equipment, as you can see. And the drum kit's also raised up as well, so it doesn't annoy the neighbours for the bass frequencies and stuff. So so this is my little man cave, as you'd call it, really.
I can't imagine the excitement of when that was finished and you could get in and make noise and just do what you want without the fear of, I don't know, neighbours complaining and council coming around.
Well, the thing is, before I moved here, I was in a little place called Biggleswade, which was it was like a housing estate, and it was quite a small house that we had there, semi-detached. And basically, I couldn't play drums there at all. So I had a little electronic kit set up, which is great, but it's not like the real thing. So coming here, this has always been the dream. A dream of mine since I was a kid, really, as well as playing, on big stages. The other dream was to have a studio of my own with all my equipment set up, where I can just walk in, grab a guitar, grab a pair of sticks and just play. And when this was finally complete, it took about 7 months in total for the builders to kind of get it all done. Then I had to get all my gear in, and when it was done, that was it. Just so happy, and it's working well because I'm now getting jobs and I'm doing a lot of like remote recording for different artists and stuff like that. And also I can just practice whenever I want. Neighbours can't hear it, so I can be here till 11 o'clock at night, and happy days. No worries about the neighbours or anything like that.
And as you said, the remote recording, that's gonna, because with these things don't come cheap. Let's be honest. So the remote recording is kind of going to pay for it as well. So it's perfect, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Because I suppose when people are looking for drummers and stuff like that, they've got to pay for the studio time as well as the session drummer as well. But here you get it combined in one. And the other thing is the studio's run from solar panels as well, so it's kind of environmentally friendly, which is important to me, and the things that I do in my life. It's just ideal. And although I'm just starting out doing this remote recording thing, because Status Quo has kind of taken up the past 10 years of my life, but as things are starting to slow down a little bit with Quo now, this is what I want to be doing, as well as touring. But I really enjoy just getting in here and experimenting with microphones and experimenting with different cymbals and drums and just doing different things, and also because I play other instruments, I write a lot of music as well. So, guitars, bass, you name it, vocals. It's just a little play hut for me, you know. So,
Lay hut. I think it's a bit more than that.
yeah.
And I'm looking at the.
Well, you know.
Getting a bit geeky, but I'm looking at the height of those overheads. They're a good way up. You've got some good ceiling height there, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I tend to use, there's something I learned, is from the elbow to the top of the hand. And I know everyone's arms are different sizes, but for me, that seems to work quite well. And I'm kind of just miking the cymbals as opposed to trying to capture the kit, because everything's closed mic. And because of the project I've been doing, it's more of like a rock and roll thing. So they want more of the close mics and then just cymbals. But I've got a couple of rooms here, and then I've got a little thing in the corridor outside as well. So it's, yeah, but I suppose they are quite high actually. But yeah, for this particular project, they seem to be the right thing for the right job.
I wasn't referring to them being too high up. It was just that I was saying you've got a nice high ceiling to be able to do that.
Yeah,
that's what I was referring to, rather than
yeah, which is helpful. You get a little bit of ambience in the room as well, which is cool.
Definitely. So, I mean, you're a busy guy. I follow you on social media, and you're doing all sorts of things. And there was something that really fascinated me. I think it was before Christmas. You played with a Quo tribute over in Europe somewhere, which I think is fantastic. How does something like that work? Do they just send you a set and you go, yeah, okay, that's all cool?
Well, so it was. So they're called the Belgian Quo band. I mean, there's so many Status Quo covers bands around the world, but the Belgian Quo band, for one, they're pretty good, but they're actually quite famous in Belgium. They do like TV interviews and they're in the newspapers and all that kind of stuff. And they've got their own fan base. So they've got they're Quo fans, but they also have their own fans as well. And I've become friendly with them over the years, just hanging out after gigs and stuff like that. They're really nice people. Because some fans can be a little bit, over the top, and some could be really nice, and and they're just really great. And there was a Quo convention in, when was it? It was 2022, and I was there representing the band, the real Status Quo, and I actually got up with them at that point and did about 5 or 6 tunes with them. So they got the idea at that point, and said, "Oh, do you want to come over to Belgium? We'll look after you. We'll pick you up. We'll put you in hotels and just come and play a few tunes." I was like, "Yeah, why not? Might as well. It's near Christmas time. Get to all the markets, Christmas markets in Belgium and all that kind of stuff, and over in Holland as well." Yeah, so I just thought it'd be nice just to give something back, and play with those guys. And they're great fun. And as I say, they're more kind of friends than they are fans, if you know what I mean. So sure. I'm quite happy to do stuff like that,
And the arrangements, I'm guessing, are faithful to the Quo originals. So it's as you do it with the guys on stage, I suppose.
Pretty much, yeah. Because he actually, he has his kit set up like mine, like I do with Quo, but it's kind of the drums are in the same position, but they're not, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And he actually plays a really low snare drum, so he's kind of hitting his thigh with his wrist when he hits the drum, and he sits quite high, and he has the cymbals really close. I actually really struggled on his drum kit because there was no time to change things around, because I had to kind of jump in and play. Right. And they actually asked me to do a drum solo one night, and I was like, "I'm really sorry. As much as I'd love to do a solo, I can't do it on this kit." Because the floor toms are really low as well. So if you imagine kind of leaning over with your left hand, you can't actually reach that tom because it's so low. Oh. And so it's like, yeah, sorry, I can't do that. So I did quite struggle on the kit, but kind of got away with it. But the songs themselves, yeah, they're pretty much exactly as we play them in this current lineup.
Sure. So
it wasn't too difficult, not too much practice.
And the thing is, back to the solo thing. You don't, drums are it only takes a fraction of a fraction of an inch for a drum to be out, and it throws the whole thing, doesn't it? And if you do a solo on somebody else's kit that you're not comfortable on, and there's going to be cameras out, it's there forever, and you don't want to,
Exactly, and that was all going out on YouTube and all that kind of stuff as well. Sure. But yeah, there's that whole thing, isn't there? Like, because I have my kit all quite high, so my snare's quite high, but the toms are quite low, and there's only a little gap kind of between the snare and the toms. But with him, it must have been about a foot. Yeah. So if you're trying to do like a fast run around, and that gap, all you do is hit the underside of the tom and the stick goes flying, and that's just, I can't deal with that and have that on camera. So, because I have everything quite close. I have my cymbals low as well. I'm not really one of those guys that kind of reaches up.
Sure.
Everything's kind of very low. I think I'm just lazy, really, but it's like to go like that. So everything's there. And as you say, you get used to your kit so much. I can play with my eyes closed because you just know where everything is, don't you?
Yeah.
But as soon as you get behind someone else's, it's like really alien. It's like it's difficult.
It's hard enough to play the grooves without playing a solo, in front of,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And also, I've not played that solo in about, I don't know, 7 years or something like that. So I'm not sure it would have been that good anyway, without practicing it a little bit. But there we go.
So, look, Leon, tell us a little bit about your kind of beginnings in music. What's your kind of first memories and what have you? Because it's always nice to go back a little bit and sort of revisit where it all came from.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose, like most people, I'm sort of a product of my mum and dad's record collection, and I'm really lucky in that my parents were really, really big music lovers and also had a very eclectic taste in music as well. And my dad, although he had a day job, he was out like sort of 5 days a week playing covers gigs. So he'd always be like buying the most recent kind of music and what have you. And I was born in 78. My first memories are probably around 82, 83, when I was about 4 or 5. And there was music on constantly in the house. And as I say, it was eclectic. So there's everything from like the Beatles, Queen, but also there was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Status Quo, obviously, all that kind of stuff. And for me it was Iron Maiden, basically, was my band. So we actually bought my dad, I think it was Father's Day present. It was called, I'm trying to remember this, it's called Masters of Metal or something like that. And the first track on there was The Trooper by Maiden. And it also had a song called Stand Up and Shout by Dio.
Yeah.
And it had like Manowar, Saxon, all those kind of, and I just remember hearing that and something just clicked to me and I was like, what is this? This is absolutely amazing. And I think it was those big tom fills that Nico does, like not only 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, just hearing the going all the way down. And I was like, yeah, this is me. And it was around that time. So what happened was my brother was bought a drum kit. He's 4 years older than me. And he was bought this little sort of kids drum kit. And he never touched it. But when I was about 4 or 5, I used to start banging around on it. And then I started kind of playing along with like this Maiden record. And then what I'd do is I'd save up my pocket money and I just became an Iron Maiden fan. I think it was one to do because something about the music just got me, but it was also like the artwork because as a kid you saw like Eddie on the front and I don't know, it was just something about it. It's like I've really connected with it. And I just became a massive Maiden fan, a Nico fan. And then it kind of moved on to everything else metal after that. And that's kind of where it all started. But because my parents had this eclectic taste, I wasn't just a metalhead. I would also put on Abbey Road or Rubber Soul or A Night at the Opera or whatever it was, or the theme music to Grease or the Bee Gees or whatever. And I enjoyed it all the same. And it's always been like that, even to this day. I have a very sort of open mind and eclectic taste when it comes to music, but that's where it all began. It was Nico, basically. He was the reason I wanted to play drums in the first instance. So that's where it started.
That's a pretty solid grounding, that, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, Nico, he's a bit of a one-off, really, isn't he? And he's got a pretty unique style, especially with that right foot of his and that right hand of his as well.
The right foot is just ridiculous. Yeah, for that, the triplets that he can do with his right foot. Yeah, but I think the thing with Nico is, although he hasn't necessarily influenced me in the way that I play, because I don't really play anything like him. But he is the reason I wanted to be a drummer, and Maiden, and I still follow Maiden now, and I still go and watch them, and they will always be my number one, because I owe my whole sort of music career to them, pretty much. So. Yeah.
Fantastic. So did you go down eventually, you've been playing a few years, did you get a teacher and go down the education route for drums?
Yeah, so when I was about 8 years old, my parents upgraded my drum kit to like an adult sized kit, and it was a Premier Royale, it was called. Yeah. It's kind of made out of like balsa wood or something. Everyone's had one of them. Yeah.
I've actually still got one, believe it or not. It's like a reddy orange one down in my lockup. So there we are.
Oh, have you?
Mm.
Well, I had a white one because it was around the time of Seventh Son, and Nico had that white drum kit, and that's what I wanted, was a white kit. But anyway, I had that, and I started having lessons in Northwich, and then because my parents kind of realised that I was like holding a beat and stuff like that, so they said maybe we should look into this, and started having lessons. I started going to a guy called Andy Richards, and he's based in Shropshire. Actually, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was like working with BBC and stuff, and he kind of basically put me through all the drum grades. So I did all my drum grades with him, and then at the end of that, he was kind of like, right, I need to hand you over to someone else. So I went to Dave Hassel after that. But I was only about 14 or 15 when I went to Dave. And he was a bit reluctant because apparently, I don't know if he does now, but at that point, he wasn't keen on taking sort of like younger kids, really.
Yeah.
And so he agreed to take me on. And he just changed my playing completely. So I'd done all the grades, and that's one thing. But I've not really played with like a click track, or I didn't really have like ghost notes or nice ghost notes, you know. So I went to him, and he basically turned my playing around completely, and I was doing everything. And he kind of opened my mind to more music as well. So I kind of went through my teens being into like Dream Theater and Mike Portnoy, and I was into all that double bass drum and all those kind of fills and stuff. But then with Dave, he started introducing me to like your Dave Weckles, your Dennis Chambers, your Steve Smiths, and my ultimate favourite, which is David Garibaldi. And once I heard David Garibaldi, that was like, right, this is me. This is a bit of me, you know, sort of all the linear kind of playing that he does. And I've really, really got into that.
Well,
but
it's funny you mentioned David Garibaldi, because it's only today, I think, he's announced his retirement from Tower of Power.
Oh, you're joking? Oh, literally today. I never got to see them.
Yeah, it's been all over social media. I think it's from March this year. So in case you're watching this in 5 years' time, it is it's the 16th of January 2024 when we're recording this. So yeah, he's announced his retirement. I think it's today. So
oh, what a shame! I never got a chance to see him. That's
shame.
Yeah, but I just loved all that, and at that point, that was just before I went to uni. So I was probably like 18 at that point. And when I went to uni, I really got into sort of funk and soul and reggae and all that kind of stuff, and a little bit of jazz as well. I'm not the best jazz player, but I really got into the feel of it and all that kind of stuff. And so I've got a lot to thank, you know, to Dave. And then after that, it was uni, and then it was out into the sort of big world after that.
Well, Dave is definitely one of the most respected teachers in the UK. There's no question. Dave's actually been on the podcast, and he was fabulous. You know, some totally different to anything else I've ever done. But he doesn't suffer fools, does he? If you're not going to practice, forget it.
To be honest, right, I was about 14. He actually made me cry one time, and I know he didn't like that because you know that movie came out, didn't it? Whiplash. And everyone started saying, "Oh, Dave's a bit like that," and I don't think he liked that, but he was right, because you know I think I'd had a lesson. I'd gone away for 2 weeks. And I hadn't practiced. Came back, and I hadn't progressed any further. And he had a go at me. And fair enough, you know, because I hadn't done anything. I hadn't become better. And it was like, what's the point? You know, I'm wasting your time. You're wasting mine, kind of thing. And it was at that point it kind of clicked. And went, yeah, I really need to knuckle down now. And as I say, he just completely changed my playing. Like the whole ghost note thing. Once he got me into that, do you remember that Bernard Purdie video, the really funny one where he's, I don't know if you've seen that. It's hilarious. Anyway, I just, and I got into all that shuffle stuff. And then Jeff Beccaro, Rosanna. And once I mastered that, it was like, okay, so it's all about sort of shuffles, ghost notes. And that's kind of really sort of excited me. And that's kind of, you know, I applied that to my drumming, as well as the sort of heavier side of stuff. I was also applying that kind of more intricate, technical, ghost note-y kind of stuff as well at the same time. So
basically, you're kind of training yourself for a career as a drummer in whatever it may be, whatever direction you go in, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, when I went to uni, I never once turned down a gig ever, even if I was out of my depth. I did some jazz gigs, playing all the standards in like a bar. pretty awful. But I probably did about 10 shows, and by the end of the 10th show, I was getting quite good at it and kind of understanding how you sort of blend with the other instruments and what have you. And I was doing hip hop stuff, I was doing reggae stuff, I was doing metal stuff, and I just never said no. I just threw myself in at the deep end, and sometimes it worked out, sometimes it doesn't. But it didn't. But I learned a lot along the way, and I continued that when I moved to London. I was saying, I don't know if we did that on camera before, but I moved to London in about 2005, and again, I just threw myself at everything. Never said no, and that was the best thing I ever did, because I started getting my name out there, but also getting so much more experience, and because I enjoy different kinds of music, I like to play them as well. So it's
So I suppose I have to ask, Status Quo. I mean, there's been some great drummers before you, some fabulous drummers before you as well. And I have to say, you're the third Quo drummer I've had on. John gave me a great interview a couple of years ago, and as did Jeff Rich as well. So it's great to have a third of five. Is that right?
Third of five, yeah. So you've got Pete Kircher, who did that sort of short period, who did Live Aid after John. And then you've got Matt Letley, who was my predecessor, who I took over from in 2013. Yeah, and I'm number 5, and probably the last as well.
Oh yeah, but what an amazing gig to have. Tell us, how did that come about? I know you did some stuff with Francis prior to joining Quo, so is that? I guess that's how did that come about? Even I should ask.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's quite a big story, but so as I was saying, I moved to London in 2005, basically with the I want to try and make it in the music industry kind of attitude. And I literally threw myself at everything. So I went down there, as I was saying, I was doing loads of gigs, met loads and loads of musicians, got my name out there. And then it was about, I think it was 2007, I was actually back up here for a wedding of an old school friend. And I got a phone call, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. And bearing in mind, it was a wedding, so I'd had a few champagnes, a few beers, a few wines, and what have you. And it was a mate of mine saying, look, this was a Saturday night. He's saying, I've got a gig if you want to do it. Problem is rehearsals tomorrow in London. And then the first gig is on Monday in Glasgow. And I can send you the tracks, but you're going to have to learn them in the car on the way down. And this was my sliding doors moment, because I could have said, nah, I'm having a bit of a nice time here, and enjoying the wedding. Or I could have said yes, and I went for that option, and as you'll find out, that was the best thing I ever did. So I said yes. I went back home, a bit half cut. I downloaded the tracks, put them onto a CD, whacked them in the car in the morning. I had to get up at like 5 o'clock, drove down to London, did the rehearsal. Then we went up to Glasgow. On the way to Glasgow, started chatting to the guys and getting to know them a little bit. And it turns out the guitar player, who's like the main guy in this band, he's like, oh yeah, well, I'm friends with one of Francis Rossi's sons. We went to school together, and he used to be in a band called Nick Rossi. And Francis has a little bit to do with the band as well. We're recording in the studio. And I was like, oh, great. That's really nice. That's quite cool. Anyway, we did that little tour. We were supporting REO Speedwagon, actually.
Oh, wow, okay.
Just playing some, kind of went from Glasgow down through Manchester and all that kind of thing. And then after that little tour, they kind of asked me to join the band, and there was 3 tracks that they needed to complete for the album, because it turned out they'd fallen out with their drummer and bass player for whatever reason. And so we were brought on, and they said, oh, do you want to do these 3 tracks? Like, yeah, brilliant. Okay. So went to Francis' studio, because that's where they record. Mm-hmm. And I recorded these 3 tracks, and Francis came down and I met him, and he just kept sort of looking at me. He was kind of like looking over the shoulder of like the producer, sort of giving me the nod. And when I come out after a take, he'd be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, nice one, well done. Anyway, that happened. Do the Makara thing. Makara does a few Quo supports. And again, we'd finished doing the support slot, and Francis would always come up to me and say, oh, really good work, Leon. I really like your feel and all that kind of thing. Great. Anyway, I get a call in probably, I think it was 2008 or 2009, out of the blue. And he says, hi, Leon, I'm doing a solo album. Do you want to come and play on it? And that's basically how the whole thing started. Wow. So I go to the studio, I do this album, and I remember the first track I did was a song called Tallulah's Waiting. and it's just a straight ahead shuffle, and it was the first take, and it's actually the one that was used on the record. Anyway, he comes in and goes, "What are you doing next year? We're going on tour." Because like, okay, well, here we go. so do the album, do the tour, did a couple of tours, and it was during a tour in like 2010. He said to me, if Matt Letley ever left Status Quo, I'd get you in the band. And I was like, oh, Francis, that's really nice of you to say so. That's really nice, but that's never going to happen, is it? Sure enough, 2012, Matt decided he wanted to leave Quo, and I got a call from Lyanne, who's our sort of PA. She's been with the band for years, and she said, "Oh, we come to the O2 Arena tomorrow, please, and come and see come and see the band because Francis wants to speak to you." I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, brilliant, okay." I wake up on the Monday morning, and it's announced Matt Letley's left the band, and that was like, right, I'm going to the O2 because Francis is going to ask me to join, and that was it. So went to the O2. He said, "Watch the gig. Let me know if you can do it, and if you can, you're in." And that was it. And that's how the whole thing went. So for me, it was all about that very first decision I made at that wedding when I was like drunk and decided to take on this gig with this band called Makara, and then everything just kind of snowballed from there, and that's how I ended up in the band.
That's crazy. You just never know, do you? You just,
No.
it'd be way too easy to go, you know what, I'm going to be hungover, forget it. And I mean, I suppose one thing, if you had done that, you wouldn't have ever known that this wouldn't have ever happened. This would have happened. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'd like to think that maybe something good would have happened later on via another route. But yeah, I mean, it was just that one decision just changed my life, really. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I have to ask, right, because this fascinates me. Obviously, your parents have been like super supportive of you, as a youngster, paying for lessons, getting you through uni, whatever. It's not cheap to do something like that. What was their reaction when you told them you were a member of Status Quo?
They were really, really excited and really over the moon. And my dad still goes nuts about it. And they come. I mean, we do a tour. They'll come to at least 10 shows, and they'll fly over to like Germany. And he's always talking to his friends about it and all that. But at the same time, he never wanted to give me like a big head or anything. So he would never actually say he was really sort of proud and happy to my face. But I know via other people that he is. And I can tell from the giddy look on his face when he's in the audience that he's loving it. But yeah, because they used to play like The Wanderer, in my dad's band and all those kind of tracks from the early 80s. And so I think it must be a nice thing for them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, honestly, I just can't imagine the joy they must get from that. After what a payoff after all the years of lessons, and from you also. Obviously, you've put the graft in, but they've obviously helped you financially and encouraged and what have you. And there's the payday. Just amazing.
Right. No, they've been brilliant. They've all supported me as well. So they've never been one of those. Also, they've never been those parents to kind of say, when you're going to get a proper job, or because when I was in London, I was doing some temping work to begin with, and then I started work at like a music college. So I was doing a bit of teaching there and doing some of the technical sort of stuff there. And they were always saying, do your music, we'll support you fully, as long as you're happy. And I wasn't earning a lot of money when I was in London, but I was going out every night. I'd do a day's work, and I'd go out and hit the London scene doing whatever it was that I was doing that night. And and they've always supported that, and it's been great. They've never doubted that I would get there at some point, hopefully. So
wow,
yeah, very good,
incredible. And I've always, I mean, I think everyone's a Quo fan. They might, some people, oh well, I don't know, but everyone loves a Quo song if they're not a huge fan. They all know them. And I've always thought of Quo is a similar kind of, I don't mean musically, a similar sort of thing to AC/DC. AC/DC, well, we know Phil Rudd is, it's simplicity in itself, but pretty hard to recreate. And it's the same, I guess, with Quo, it either shuffles or it's straight, and there's nothing overly technical. And everyone goes, oh yeah, it's easy to do that, but it is so not. I mean, you listen to, I don't know, for Backbone, for instance, which I'm assuming you played on that one.
Yeah, I played the whole album on that
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
it
yeah,
is. You can't get a grain of sand in between that rhythm section. You know, the guitar, the bass guitar, drums, and it's
yeah,
fiendishly difficult to do, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, for me, it's all about the right hand with Quo, because we were talking about the tribute bands before. But if you watch John Coghlan back in the day, it's all eights.
Yeah,
If you think like Caroline, it's all eights. And the shuffles are all sort of hard, soft, hard,
yeah,
soft. But a lot of the covers bands, they don't do that. They'll just go like this, and for
all
me,
in.
that's what makes it tricky and difficult. It's having that stamina to keep all the eights going
Yeah,
for like an hour and 50 minutes. But I use the push pull technique.
yeah,
So you get them like two for the price of one, and that's how I'm able to do it. But it can be, if you're not relaxed, it's actually quite intense. And I remember when I first joined the band, it was like a workout every night. So although the music is fairly simple, it takes a lot of energy, and you kind of everything's up tempo as well. We don't do any slow tracks apart from in the army now. Everything's just up and it's fast, and there's no gaps between songs, just straight in boom bash, and so in that way it is quite difficult. And again, and it's all about the shuffle, which John was a master. So
yeah,
when I was kind of learning the tracks, they really wanted me to kind of be very similar to Matt Letley, because they've been with him for 13 years. So if I did anything slightly different, even down through his drum fills, they'd be like, no, don't do that. We want to have what Matt did. So I would have to do that. I've slowly changed it over the past 10 years. But initially I had to basically mimic what Matt was doing. Yeah. But at the same time, I was going back to John and say, right, how did he play this? How did he play, roll over, lay down? And watching his sort of digging into the hats and just really making it groove and shuffle. And he's kind of more of an influence on how I play quad songs and say some of the later drummers,
Yeah, as he should be, I think, really, especially on the material that he played on.
Absolutely.
That's the gospel, isn't it? Really,
it is. Yeah, he's the man. He's the don, as it were. So.
But do you get the comparison? I mean, because people say, AC/DC songs are easy. Try playing Dream Theater, but you try playing AC/DC convincingly without putting loads of nonsense in and laying it down and getting that sound and that feel. Not easy to do, is it?
The amount of bad versions I've heard of Back in Black, usually it's too fast, and it's always pushing, because the thing with Phil Rudd is behind the beat. It's really like slinky and behind, and I guess like with Quo, some of it's like that as well. But on other songs, it's kind of pushing a little bit as well. It's kind of pushing forward, and that's the kind of feel it creates. But with Rhino, we've really locked in. Rhino's a bass player in Quo, and really locked in. And with my in-ear monitor mix, I have Francis as the only guitar, and I have Richie. It was Rick initially, of course, and then Richie, the guitar a little bit lower. But Francis is so solid, it's unbelievable. So I just kind of sit with him and with Rhino, whose amp's right next to me, so I can feel it coming through the riser. And it's just a really nice feel and a nice groove that we're able to get now. It took me a while to kind of fit in. It took me about a year to kind of get it, because obviously they've been used to the same guy for 13 years, and I come in and playing it slightly different, but it's become its own thing now. Yeah. And it's very groovy. It's really good fun to play, and I think people enjoy it in this sort of the version that it is at the moment.
Of course. And it's one of those things. Whenever you see Quo, you can't help. I always say you could put somebody who's never heard Quo before in a Quo gig. You can't help but get kind of sucked into it, and it has that kind of that pulse, that bounce to it, and it's amazing. It's an incredible thing. It's an amazing sight to behold and sound to behold as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's all about the songs now. They're so powerful, and like just meeting the Quo fans, like the band just means so much to them. It's amazing, and if I can kind of honor that in my way, then that's brilliant. But as you say, it's infectious. That's the word I'm looking for. It's infectious. Like, even if you haven't heard the band before, when you come and watch us, you can enjoy yourself. You know, you can have your hands in the air. And we've done a few of those like metal festivals. So we did this thing called Hellfest, and I think it was like, Sepultura were like on before us, and then after us it was some other kind of like really heavy double bass drum band, and we were like, oh, this is going to be quite difficult. It's going to be quite tricky. Anyway, we went up there. As soon as we got into Caroline, they just went mental, and it was almost like it was a bit of light relief from the really heavy stuff, but also they all knew the songs. You know, we were doing Rock and All Over the World at the end, and there was just like people on each other's shoulders, and you know, intertwined through the audience. It was just absolutely crazy, and they really enjoyed it. And it's just all about the songs, you know.
Sure. I mean, it must be a joy to have Francis's guitar in your ears, because he's got a remarkable rhythm and groove to his playing, hasn't he? You know, he's the guitar equivalent of a drummer, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, no one can play like him, to be honest. I've not heard anyone that sounds like him, but yeah, he is just so solid. I mean, because we play to a click in the main. There's a few tracks that aren't.
Oh, okay.
If I was to stop playing and you were just to hear him on the click, he's just bang on it every time. But without sort of, still with a groove, you know, still with feel. Because sometimes if you're too much on it, it hasn't got that nice soulful bounce to it, you know. But yeah, I mean, he is solid, and as is Rhino as well.
Yeah,
and it's a joy to kind of be able to play with those guys. And like when I first joined the band, because I wasn't necessarily a massive Quo fan, to be honest. I think that was one of the reasons why they might have chosen me as well. But it's like there's a couple of occasions where, as you say, you hear Francis in your ears and you're going, bloody hell, that's Francis Rossi and that's Rick Parfitt playing right next to me, and I'm in the band with them. And there's a few moments like that, and you think, bloody hell, how did this happen? You know. But then other times you're just kind of cracking on with it and doing the show. But yeah, you do have a kind of a few moments where you just go, bloody hell, I'm playing whatever you want in front of like 8,000 people. It's like, this is just amazing, you know.
It's not bad experience. I'm quite surprised when you mentioned about a click. Is that just for timing's sake, rather than any sequences or anything running?
Yeah, I mean, they've been playing with the click like through all of Matt Letley's time, but there's a couple of sequences on things like In the Army now. There's loads of like keyboard and as of late we've been putting a few BVs and things like that on there just to pad it out, make it sound a little bit bigger. Yeah, and then because I say the click runs through most of it, I think it was more about tempo, because there's been a few sort of drummers in the past where everything's just been really fast, and you know, when you get on a stage, you know, in front of that many people, sometimes coming to Caroline twice as fast as it should be isn't a nice thing to hear or to play. So Francis really wanted everything to be locked in and be as close to the album versions as possible, so everything's kind of, you know, held back and at the right tempo and that kind of thing. So we've been playing with a click. I mean, the whole time I've been in the band, there's been a click, and I think with Matt, it was pretty much from day one, because there is a few videos. They're on Top of the Pops and stuff like that, and he's got headphones on, you know. Sure. So I think it's quite important to Francis to have that.
Well, I speak to a lot of people on this podcast, and they say, you know, especially in front of like 8,000 or 10,000 people, whatever it is. Pardon me. And the adrenaline's going. I think Nick Collins actually was one of them.
Oh yeah.
And he said there was one with a click came in, and he's like, "This can't possibly be this song. It's too slow," you know. And he's like, and he said it was right, and he said he was horrified at how slow.
The heart rate's like this.
Yeah.
That's happened to me, because, like, you know, been with Quo for over 10 years now. And I don't really get nervous anymore, but every now and again, like in 2019, we did Hyde Park. And that was like 60,000 people, but it was also going out live, both audio and visual. And so the whole thing was being filmed. So, you know, if you make any mistakes, that's it. You're done.
Everyone's going to know.
And as you say, as Nick said, when the click came into Caroline, because we always open with Caroline, I was like, this feels really, really flat. My heart rate's up like that. We just have to kind of relax into it and go, right, the clicks are right, don't worry, just sit back, enjoy it. And before you know it, by the time you get to the middle of the first track, everything's okay. But you do have those little moments where the heart rate is pushing a little bit faster than it should be,
Oh.
Or you get it the other way around when you've got a really bad hangover, and then Caroline comes in, it feels like really fast. Oh God.
And as far as I mean, there's lots of shuffles, as we know, as you know, in particular. Are they kind of quite clean shuffles? It doesn't sound like there's much ghost notes going in. It's very much it's
yeah. It depends on the track. I do a few different ones. So I mean, the main kind of ones that they would do it's usually a 4 to the floor, and then it's just a shuffle on the right and the 2 and 4 on the left. There's a song called "Hold You Back," and I'll put in a little skip, and do that kind of thing. And then we do a song called "In My Chair," which is that.
I know the song, yeah.
Yeah, quite slow. That's a 2-handed shuffle.
Yeah,
and actually sometimes it's a shuffle on the left and just straight quarters on the right. And then when it kicks in, you kind of do the both again. So yeah, it kind of varies really, but the majority are just kind of the sort of boom smack kind of ones, but always with the shuffle and the 8s in the right hand.
Yeah,
as opposed to just sort of flashing it out,
And obviously, when Rick passed away, it must have been a tricky time. Obviously, the band kept going, which is great, and I think he'd approve of everything that's gone on since musically, because it's it hasn't changed style.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Rick sadly passed away, and it was Christmas Eve in 2016. But he was actually ill from it was the July of that year in 2016, and he had another heart attack when we were together in Turkey, and he wasn't quite right after that point. But he said at that point, he gave it his blessing, and he was like, "You got to carry on." And it was actually his decision to ask Richie to do it, who's the guy that's since replaced him. Basically because Rich, I mean, so that's Richie's story, but he's basically followed Quo since he was a kid, and he learned how to play like Rick, and he's got the right hand down because Rick plays in quite an aggressive, heavy way, and it's all about the rhythm that he does with his right hand.
Is it all downstroke?
It's all downstroke. Yeah. And he uses ridiculously heavy gauge strings as well. But he used to have cut all up his fingers and arms, his nails would be gone and all that. He was an absolute animal. But Richie plays in that similar way, and Rick said, get Richie in and just carry on, do what you do. And so he gave it his blessing. And I think he would have been happy, with a new album, and we've done loads and loads of gigs since then as well. So it's
Well, I don't know if I've got this correct or not. Are you credited with "Falling Off the World"? Is that your?
Yeah, that's one of my tracks.
Which you know what? I remember when the album came out and I heard it, and everyone loves Quo. I'm a Quo fan, and I was like, yeah, that's really in the vein of Quo. And I revisited it once I knew we were speaking, and I looked and I saw you got the credit, and I was like, bloody hell, it could have been written in 1978 that or something, amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, I consider myself more of a musician who plays drums rather than a drummer who's a musician, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I play quite a few different instruments since I was very young, and I've always loved songwriting as well. And I like to write in the style of. So when it came to Quo, and Francis said, "Do you want to have a go at writing a song on the album?" I suppose it's like a pastiche. So it was kind of like I was trying to write in the style of Quo rather than it be a song that I'd write that came out sounding like Quo, if you know what I mean. So I was kind of consciously trying to make it like a Quo tune. I'm just lucky that he got on there. Francis heard it and he instantly liked it and said he can go on the album. So
it's a great album and a great song, and it fits perfectly. It really does. But what a thrill to have a credit, on a.
Yeah, that's another tick dream box moment for me is to have a track on a Quo album, and to have it sort of locked in history, which is a real honour and privilege for me, I have to say. Absolutely.
It's a great gig you've got there. Obviously, we've talked about the band. Are you touring this year at all?
Yeah, so we've had last year off, 23, because Francis has been doing the solo thing, which is going very well for him. It's sort of just like a talking thing. But this year is all about Quo, so we're going to rehearsals early May, and then we're hitting it really hard until September. We're basically, I think we're at 42 shows so far.
Yeah.
And I think I'm away for about 12 weeks at one point.
Wow.
Which is a long time away from. It's probably the longest time actually. We're all over Europe, and we're obviously across the UK as well. So there's, people want to come and check it out, go to the website, but all the dates are on there. I think about 38 of them have been officially announced, but I know there's 42 and there's a few more in the pipeline as well. I'm really looking forward to getting back out with the guys again and getting playing. Yeah.
Tell me, do Quo have a following in the States, or is it generally Europe?
They don't at all, to be honest. Only maybe people who are really into music and know about, the British bands and stuff like that. But basically, they did have an opportunity to go over there. I think it was like towards the end of the 70s, early 80s. But what happened was they were playing, around Europe and the UK, playing like stadiums, arenas, playing to thousands of people. And then over there, they were playing like the House of Blues clubs to like 500 people and they just kind of made the decision that they didn't want to pursue it. They thought, we've got, a really nice career, people who love us in the UK and all over Europe. And they're also big in Australia. So we've been over to Australia as well and played over there.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. And that's another market. And also some South America, which I haven't had a chance to go, which is a shame. So they're the sort of little areas, but the US never really grabbed onto it. They never latched onto it. Wow. I think one of the Pictures of Matchstick Men was used in a really big movie, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was something like Men in Black or something like that.
Oh, right.
And a few people kind of, made the discovery of Status Quo, this band, but it was that kind of psychedelic side of the band as opposed to sort of the boogie rock that it became,
Sure.
So unfortunately, I've never done a tour of the States. I'd love to one day, but maybe with another band at some point, But as for Quo, they were just happy with their European, sort of fame, as it were.
Good enough for me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't normally get into talking about gear too much, but you play Noonan custom drums, don't you? And I really like Gary. He's a great guy. He's
awesome.
He's sort of brought some life into an old Gretsch round badge of mine, and I know he makes stuff. And I know not a huge amount of people, endorse them. I'm sure there are a few, but you don't see that many on the stages that you're playing. So I think it's fantastic that you're playing these great drums. Tell us a little bit about them and how you got in with Gary.
Well, to be honest, I kind of inherited Gary's drums via Matt Letley. So he had a deal with Matt, and then when I joined the band, he kind of came on board, as did some of the other companies as well. And he's just as you say, he's a really nice bloke, but he makes really great drums as well. Oh, yeah. And he built like two kits for me now, and they just sound great. The drum techs that I've had, they all just sound brilliant, and the front of house is always really happy. So I was kind of lucky, really, because he kind of approached me when I joined the band, and I was like, yeah, I'll give that a go. Because before that, I was using this. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a company called Spawn.
Oh, yeah, I can, yes.
Yeah, and they're based in the US, and I think they're actually built in the DW factories. Right. And that was a kit I bought actually when I went on tour with Francis Rossi for his solo thing. So I was just using that. But as I say, when I joined Quo, Gary was there on the scene. We had a little chat. And he built me two lovely drum kits and a load of snare drums, and I'm just really happy with everything. And he's doing it all by himself. It's just a one-man band, but he's really helpful. And I just like having that sort of close relationship with him, and can just call him up and he'll help me out anytime, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Just building those relationships. So
absolutely, as I say, he's a great guy. Not only does he build great drums, but he renovates and does all sorts. Yeah. So he sorted my kit out, did a great job, did the bearing edges, did everything. So it's just great to see his drums being played in arenas and festivals as you're doing. So
he's fantastic. He's actually rewrapping. I don't know if you can see the kit in the far corner. There's like a silver sparkle. Yes, he's actually going to rewrap. Yeah, he's rewrapping that for me before the Quo tour. We haven't decided on a colour yet. But I'm going to be taking it down to him. He's going to sort all that out, and that's the kind of that's the kind of geezer he is, you know.
Well, that's
He's
not. I mean,
excellent.
it's one of those things. It's and it'll be unrecognisable, won't it? Then if it's been used on
Yeah,
tour already, why get a new kit when you can just rewrap it and it's
yeah, because it sounds great.
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds awesome. So that's the way to do it. I mean, the other thing is with the Silver Sparkle, like because we played a lot of hot countries, it started to kind of go like a goldy kind of color as well. So at the front it's gold, and at the back it's silver. Yeah. So we thought let's just give it a bit of a change up, and we'll try something new for the next tour. Yeah. So
I think it's a very famous problem since the '60s, that isn't it? With sparkles, all fading.
Yeah, my drum tech had this big like piece of tin foil that he puts in front of the kit while it's sitting on stage, but it doesn't always work. You usually end up fading at some point. So
tan the kit.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing stuff. You know what? I really appreciate you giving up your time. You've got a fascinating career with and I know you do other stuff, and you've done things for Bonnie Tyler and Jim Kirkpatrick. Yeah. Great guitarist. I'm on FM.
Yeah, he's one of the best mates, Jim. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. But I've got a gig with him on Thursday. I'm doing about 40 shows with him as well this year. So
wow.
Yeah, outside of Quo, I do that on the side as well. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, look, all the best with everything. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I'll put the Quo website in all the descriptions and everything, and yours, of course, and whatever I can find, and hopefully a few people watching this will be able to catch you on the show and enjoy your fantastic playing. So,
thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Been great to meet you.
Thanks, Leon.
Nice one.
Appreciate it.
See you
soon, mate. Take care. Bye now.
Bye. Bye.